Welcome to the next section of Visual Studio Code and Docker training. We're going to jump into Docker Desktop and Visual Studio Code and understand how they collaborate together. So let's take a look at the requirements first on what's required from you to install this locally. And first, you need an operating system, Linux, Mac, or Windows. Any of these three will work on your machine. The next, and probably the most critical of all the requirements, is you need also permission to install Docker and Visual Studio Code. I'm going to provide all the links down below, so be sure to check out the links for your particular operating system, how to install Docker, how to install Visual Studio Code. Next up, we need to make sure Docker is installed, so Docker for desktop. And finally, we need Git. We need Git installed because we're going to clone a couple projects for later on. Now, Docker Desktop and Visual Studio Code, as you see, if you open up Docker Desktop and you navigate within the desktop, you can actually see there's stacks running. So you can see Traffic, Prometheus, Docker Compose, Demo. And when I hover over a particular stack, it says I can open within Visual Studio Code, which is quite cool. And then if I click on that, it actually takes me right into Visual Studio Code. So it opens up the project. As you see here, I have this Docker Compose demo, have two containers running, and it opens up the Docker Compose file for this particular application. I don't have to do anything. It launches directly from this particular folder for this project. Now, next up, and a really great tip, is I can launch Visual Studio Code directly from the command line. So for example, if I'm in my terminal and I say, oh, I really would like to open this project within code, I can just type in code and space period, and it'll launch Visual Studio Code in that directly right away. Now, there are some gotchas for this. macOS, of course, we're special. We have to install this manually. So if you go to Shift Command P and you type in shell command, install code command and path, it'll install this command for you. You can see the command down here at the bottom. Now, Windows and Linux, you get this for free. It's installed automatically, so you don't have to do anything. So lucky you. So it's only us fortunate Mac users have to install this manually. And you see, when I do code space period, enter, it actually executes Visual Studio Code and opens up my Docker project right within that directory. Very cool. Now we're going to see next a demo of Docker Desktop and Visual Studio Code, exactly how they collaborate back and forth, how I'm going to interact with Visual Studio Code from the Docker Desktop interface, and also launch Docker Desktop from the command line. Join me in the next section.